I see this clip of Mark Schlereth from the Stinkin' Truth podcast. Of course, Schlereth, who calls games for Fox. I believe he called the 49ers game. I think it was this week 18 he did with the Rams. But he had an interesting clip about Brock Purdy, because if you don't know, the broadcast teams meet with players and coaches before games, and it's sort of like on the record, but not really on the record conversation. Like, it's understood that you're going to get some juicy info in those sessions, but you can't say like, hey, Kyle Shanahan told me XYZ. You just kind of have to use what you learn in those sessions to inform what you say during the game. But Stink talked about a conversation he had with Brock Purdy, and I thought it was really interesting because he brought up the idea of Brock being a game manager. And here was Brock's response.
I'm impressed because he bowed his back a little bit.
Did he?
Yeah.
How so?
He bowed his back because Brock Purdy said, anybody who calls me a game manager either is not watching the film or doesn't know what they're looking at.
Ooh, spicy.
In the end, the end of this thing will tell the story. And I'm telling him, he goes like, hey, listen, I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm not saying I'm the best quarterback or I'm the best, but he goes, I got some gunslinger in me. And you look at some of the throws I make. You look at some of the windows I throw it into. He goes, I know that I'm not the biggest armed guy. I never have been. So I had to make up for the lack of arm talent with perfect timing, with great footwork, with being on time, and knowing where everybody is.
I got to say, I love that from Brock. And I feel like that's that element, that cockiness, that swag, whatever you want to call it. The Niners have not had that at quarterback, especially under Kyle Shanahan. They just haven't. They haven't had that guy that wants to go out and stick it to you. And I feel like that could be the difference in the playoffs in a tight spot, maybe where if Kyle starts to pucker up a little bit, like we know he sometimes does, maybe that swag from Brock will help them get over the hump.
I interpret this totally differently. You interpret this as confidence. I interpret this as insecurity. The lack of confidence. Like, yeah, he plays confidently a lot, but this thing is like a bugaboo of his. Hey, don't call me a game manager, which is what Cam Newton did. Cam Newton got under his skin, calling him a game manager. I believe that was on December 14th. Then 11 days later, Brock Purdy has the worst game of his career on national television Christmas night, sort of trying to prove that he's got that gunslinger in him, throwing that interception in the first drive of the game. So to me, this is kind of what he needs to overcome. Like, this is your insecurity. Stop trying to prove the naysayers wrong, dude. Who freaking cares? You're this close to winning the Super Bowl. The narratives will take care of themselves. You don't have to set the record straight. And one thing I really respect Brock Purdy. I like him a lot. He said this off the record or privately to Mark Schlereth, who had to relay it and give the cliff notes and summarize it. I asked Brock Purdy on the record in a group interview just a few days after Cam Newton said what he said. I said, do you consider yourself a game manager? And Brock Purdy said, I don't know. I don't want to comment on that. Like I said, I'm playing quarterback, trying to win games, and we'll see at the end of all of it. That's the right answer. That's the right answer. I don't know, man. I don't care. It's not something I'm thinking about. We're going to win the Super Bowl and it'll work itself out. Don't go to Mark Schlereth and be like, hey, man, people don't get it. People just don't understand. If they watch the film, they know. Like, don't do that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. It makes you look petty and insecure, I think. And someone who's extremely insecure, me, I can feel insecure. You know what I mean? It takes one to know one. It takes one to know one.
So that is the nature of those production meetings, is that it's, like I said, it's kind of off the record. Like, it's understood that you're not going to reveal specifically maybe exactly what was said.
And then he did.
And
thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But you can tell Brock is very conscious of his public comments about stuff. Like, we see on the podium, he's all shucks kind of guy, but then on the field, he's banging his chest and, he's doing the primal scream. Yeah. So, like,
yeah, as he should.
Right. So I think like what he told Mark Schlereth is how he really feels, and what he answered to you in the press conference is what he thinks he should say in the press
Of
conference.
course. Hey man, you should say what you think you should say to Mark Schlereth. He's not your friend. He's media. He's gonna go if he doesn't do it on the broadcast, he'll do it on the podcast. And he just did. And he made you look insecure. Like you gave the answer to me in public for a reason, because you understand. Like I don't want to even go there. I don't want to get into that. I'll just be above it, as you should be. So look, man, you're 24 years old. You probably trusted this Mark Schlereth. He probably abused your trust. And you learned a lesson, man. You can't trust these media members. As a media member myself, can't be trusting us.
Well, I'm surprised. So full disclosure, I worked with Mark Schlereth at ESPN for years. I've gotten to know him pretty well. It was surprise if this did take place in a production meeting, and I don't know that for sure, but that's what I'm thinking because of what Brock told him and the difference in the answers between the two spots. I'm assuming it was in one of those production meetings, so I'm surprised that Stink would reveal that, because clearly Brock, he had the opportunity to say that publicly and he didn't take it.
Maybe it's not a huge violation to trust, but I just feel like it's, and maybe it's not a big deal, but I think it's such an interesting insight into Brock Purdy's psyche. And I think he's just a little off with this one, man. You are whatever the Niners need you to be on that day. If they need you to be a gunslinger, be one. If they need you to be a game manager, you got to be one, because they're 10-0 this season when you don't throw an interception. So all the plays you make, spinning out, creating stuff, that's just extra. And it's nice. But basically they need you to be a game manager, a good one, and you can do it. So get over yourself. Take your pride out of it. Your legacy will be written one day down the line. You'll prove yourself, but just be whatever the Niners need you to be. If you go back and look at Tom Brady's first few runs through the playoffs, he was managing the game, and no one really cares anymore because he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but to me, all the great players have that chip on their shoulder. They all do. Brady, Peyton Manning, any quarterback you want to name.
They would be great. They're like, don't call me mediocre. I'm great for sure, man. But can you balance that and forcing something like Brock did on his first interception against the Ravens? That is the real test. By the way, speaking of the Ravens, Willie Black says, your dad still owes Lamar an apology. He said he holds the ball in one hand and training manual in the other when passing. I mean, I feel like you should throw that out when Lowell's actually on. He also said that he's the most dangerous weapon in the league. I don't know. He's entitled to his opinion. I think Lamar Jackson is the third best quarterback in the league. I'd take him over everyone except Mahomes and Allen. That's how I feel.
Well,
if you don't think my dad owes you an apology, talk to my dad about it. I don't know the intermediary. He's got Twitter.
There you go. James Welsh says, you like it stats because you're a homer. All that gunslinger rah-rah is why he was ultimately benched in college for erratic play and interceptions. He's overcompensating in this interview. So James obviously read it similar to how you read it, Grant. Also, the idea that I'm
called you a name. I would never call you a name to your face.
Homer? Me? That's hilarious. All people come at me as is that I'm getting criticized because I'm too mean to the 49ers. But I just think that, like, perfect example, the Super Bowl with the Chiefs in 2019. Like, you could see the tide kind of turning on the 49ers in the second half of that fourth quarter. And I feel like Jimmy's back there going, oh, God, don't screw this up. I can't mess it up. And ultimately, he did. And I feel like in the same spot, Brock would be like, all right, time for me to make a play. I got this. And I just feel like it would have turned out differently.
We're talking about tone and sort of posturing here. And again, what he did was say, like, he condescended to people. When he's in public talking, he's one of us. He's the guy who has the roommate. But when he talks off the record, he's like, well, if you know the game, if you watch the film, dude, you just turned 24. Don't condescend to people like that, because that's not the image you're trying to portray. You're conscious of your image. You don't do that in group interviews and public interviews. So don't do it off the record, because then it makes you seem like there's the public you, the private you, and we all have that. But you're the quarterback of the Niners. You got to be on it 24/7. You can't let Mark Schlereth see a different side of you, because that side doesn't exist to anyone except your wife and your parents.
I don't have like, does Brock Purdy know more about football than I do? Yes. Does he understand film better than I do? Yes.
Don't say it.
If
You
it's
don't say
true, I don't have a problem with it if it's true, which it is.
Sure, of course it is, but like then say it publicly if that's how. If they stand on it, stand on it. Be that guy.
Fair criticism.
But you don't want to be that guy, right? Because it's kind of unseemly. Now you're like kind of like the bad guy. No, you want to be the aw shucks backwards hat. You know, I could be your kid. I could be your brother. You root for me. Yeah, it's a great wholesome image for the league and for you and for the team. All that.
Well, I also think he has the right to defend himself if he wants to, though. I mean, game manager is
but like no one can. Yeah, from Cam Newton. Go talk to Cam about it. Hey, Cam, call Cam. I'm sure you can get Cam's number.
Don't ask
Cam, I didn't appreciate what you said.
Don't
That's
ask
what you
Debo
do.
for his number.
Cam, why'd you say that about me publicly? Why did you do that? Let's talk. You could do that. But you would talk to Mark Schlereth about it, dude. Forget Mark Schlereth. He shouldn't be involved. Don't talk to Mark. Who's Mark? He's like in his 50s. Like, you know, he's like your friend.
Well, he was unannounced. He was calling the game. That's why he was talking to him. It's not like they just hung out. Like,
tell me. I'm in the locker room, Brock. If you want to get stuff off your chest, you can trust me. I would never go on I don't even have a podcast. Trust me.
Shiza says, I could care less if Purdy's a game manager, just win the Super Bowl. Nick Eller says, has Grant ever been more wrong than on every Brock Purdy take? He has. No one thinks it's insecurity. Cohn's quarterback evaluator skill is game manager level.
I'm not evaluating his quarterback. I'm evaluating his confidence. I'm just saying, if he was real confident about this answer, he would say it publicly. Hey, if you watch the film, if you know, like Trent Williams says that stuff on the record. Brock doesn't want to say that on the record. I'm 24. Shucks. I'm just doing what I can for my team trying to get that second contract. So don't say it to Mark Schlereth. I'll say it to Mark Schlereth for you. If you watch the film.
I want to reach out to Stink and find out, like, did he say this to you in a production meeting? What was the deal? I'd like to know that a little bit more.